Miranda, good to get you back on. March 12th, you're jumping in on short notice again, second straight short notice fight facing Sabina Mazo. What is your assessment of her, and why does this fight intrigue you so much? Because you took it on short notice, so there's got to be some level of intrigue.
Well, one, I've been waiting for a fight for a while. I've been told it was going to be a while until I got a fight, potentially until June. And I don't like waiting half of a year before I get to have a fight. So when I was offered her name, I was already ready to take the fight. And I've known Sabina for a while in terms of researched her before. I've had prior experience looking her up when she was the LFA champion. And, I was really excited to finally get to fight her in a bigger scene now. She hasn't changed too much since then. As far as she's longer, she has that reach advantage. She's primarily a striker, and I feel like in every area, really, I can dominate this fight. I'm on a losing streak. She's on a losing streak, and one of us, has a lot to lose in this fight. And I feel like I'm not going to be the one to lose.
Mazo, she has lost her last two fights against Maria Agapova and Alexis Davis. Did you go back and look at those fights in a little bit more detail? And if you did, what did you think about those performances?
I've actually watched all of her fights very detailed. I try to always analyze every fight that my opponent has had that is out there, at least within the recent years. And, they keep up the volume. They're able to not be right at the reach of her kicks. I think a lot of people make the mistake of staying right outside to where she can kick them but not hit them, or she can hit them and kick them. And I think it's a thing about knowing your distance and either being all the way in, all the way out. And a lot of those wins that people have over her are due to being able to beat that and find her weaknesses. And I'm not going to talk too much about the game plan, but I feel like I'm going to find the weaknesses as well.
In the process of getting this fight signed, I heard that you were offered your teammate. And tell that story of how that all happened.
So I guess that's another reason why I was so eager to take it. The night before I was offered Sabina, I got offered to fight JJ Aldrich, and my manager just messaged me and he's like, I'm pretty sure she's your teammate, but just in case, you got the offer to fight JJ Aldrich. And I was like, oh, no, she is my teammate. In fact, I would say I'm one of her primary training partners at times. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And so we laughed about it. Mick was like, oh, sorry, I forgot what team everybody was on. And went back to the drawing board, and I was like, now another wait for a month and a half. It gets me all excited every time I get a message of, hey, fight offer. And then the Sabina offer came literally the next day. What are the odds of having both flyweight fights on the card have somebody drop out?
Definitely. So, like you said, she's one of your primary training partners, and she's actually fought Sabina back in the day. And another training partner of yours fought Sabina as well, Shayna Dobson, sorry. So is it true that when you have teammates that have fought your future opponent, is it an advantage, do you feel?
I think it definitely can be, because they can tell you the reality in there versus what you can see on the TV. They can tell you whether a person hits hard or not. They can tell you how something feels, how their movement felt. I think it is a big advantage. Now, obviously, both of those fights have been a while back. Shauna got hit with a liver kick very early, so it's kind of hard to see how she squared up against that one. And then JJ, it wasn't one of her best performances, and I feel like she's improved a ton since that fight. So there's things that you can glean from those fights, and there's things that you can't. So I'm not going in there like, oh, I do this good or bad against these people, I'm going to have this performance against Sabina. As we all know, fight math isn't perfect. So I do just get what knowledge I can from them going into the fight, and the rest is just based on me analyzing her fights and me being prepared myself.
Definitely. And you've been in Colorado. You switched things up not too long ago. Easton Training Center is one of the spots that you frequent. How has it been, adjusting to the team and to your training partners? Is it like an instance of it seemed like you were meant to be there?
Yeah, I love it. It's one of those times where I got to pick wherever I wanted to go train, and I picked here for good reason. It's got such a big female team of high-level girls, not just a lot of females. A lot of people boast about their female teams, but these are high-level girls. A lot of them are in the UFC, have been there for years. I went through tough, and, I was watching them when I was barely starting out. So for me to be able to train with these high-level girls and get that experience and their advice and have all these coaches to choose from, which is also really important for me, is huge. I came from a gym where there were basically only two coaches. I wasn't going to have anybody else coach me anyway. And now here, if I don't get along with a coach, or I want to reach out about a different kind of technique, like say one's more skilled in Muay Thai or one has better wrestling background, I can say, hey, I'm going to choose this coach this fight camp. And nobody has any hard feelings. They're all a team unit, and it works great.
Yeah, it sounds good. And training so up high in the mountains, so above sea
Yeah.
level, was that something that you struggled with to adjust to at the start?
Yeah, I don't see how you can't. If anybody says they didn't struggle, then they either weren't training for a couple months or they're superhuman. I'd say for 2 months I was struggling. It took me a long time to acclimate. I would fight through it, no doubt, but you just always felt like you just had been eating cookies all night long and couldn't fight the next day. It felt like you had been bloated, or like you just didn't have the breathing. It's just not there, and people don't understand until they've finally been in it, because I was one of those people that I'm like, I have good cardio, I'll be fine, it won't affect me. And then here we go, round two of a sparring match, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm dead, I can't do anything.
Mhm. And once you got used to it, did you feel the advantages that you can have like
I
once you
do.
get back down to sea level?
Yeah, when I go like back home to train and stuff like that, I'm like, wow, I feel like a powerhouse. I could go all day, every day, and it is a big difference, especially the way you learn to breathe. You're like, wow, I just feel like I'm taking deeper breaths. I'm getting more oxygen.
Yeah, and you go back to your last two fights, right? You dropped decisions. The one against Macy Barber was so close. A lot of controversy surrounding that one. Um, Learning lessons from each fight. What did you take away from facing each of those opponents?
Yeah, the Macy fight, I still don't think I lost. I don't think a lot of people think that I lost, and that's a good way to think about it. But it doesn't matter whether I win or I lose. I try to learn things from the fights. And in the Macy fight, a lot of it is just don't slow down, keep your foot on the gas pedal. Think in the third round, whether it was subconsciously or not, I just didn't go out there and just absolutely keep driving forward like I had the other two rounds. And I've made sure that I'm able to do that now. The Erin fight was a true loss. I would say it's the worst loss I've ever had. She was able to just hold me down, not too much damage, not really any submissions that were actually gotten in. And I was defending well, but that's not winning a fight. And unfortunately, I think it was a downward spiral from the first round on, of me not expecting to be taken down and definitely not expecting to get held down. And once I had lost the first round, which I don't know if I've ever lost a first round before, it was kind of just disheartening for me. And I think I let it get to me mentally. And, it was just an uphill battle from there. And I just kept getting taken down and held down. And we've been really working on wrestling defense and offense, but defense primarily, and defense on the ground too, to where I can get back up instead of worrying about getting hit and just staying there to hold on, instead of, take some risks to get out of the fight and win.
Definitely, and you said that you battled some obstacles there in that last fight. After the fight, was it hard to dig yourself off? Because you could get down on yourself or the way you perform, and fighters are their harshest critics. So was it difficult to kind of get out of that loss, or does it still kind of burn inside of you?
It does still burn. It was pretty depressing, I guess you'd say. Right afterwards, I felt kind of like I had let my team down. My coach, I always kind of take the full blame. I'm like, this was me. I did this. I'm the one that walks in there on my own. Therefore, I'm the one that lost. And even when people are kind of sharing that pain with me, it hurts, especially when there's social media and all this public attention. That's like, wow, you should get a new team. You need to work on your grappling. This and that. Like, all this stuff that people just don't even know what goes on behind the scenes. They don't know how hard it is in there. And a lot of them don't know my background, right? So a lot of them think, oh, she's just a striker. And I love that people think that. It's great because I get to come out the door and surprise people. But it was a hard fight. It was a hard loss to take, especially two in a row. I don't think I've ever had two losses in a row. And it hurt, and it was hard to come back from. But it gave me that veracity to get back in the training and just want this even more.
Yeah, and what's great about this sport is you could just hop back in there and erase all of those memories in people's minds
As
with a
they say,
huge
it's a
win.
very forgettable sport. And
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah,
all you got to do is give them 5 new minutes of stuff, and they'll think you're a completely different fighter and forget anything else that happened, which is ridiculous when you're on the losing side and also the winning side. I've
Yeah.
talked about how harsh it is. Like Jillian Robertson, I'll use her as an example. I like Jillian just fine. We fought each other. And I remember beforehand, everybody was like, oh, she's a world class grappler. She's one of the best. Then I fought her and won that fight, and everybody was like, oh, well, Jillian sucked anyway. It wasn't that big of a win. I'm like, okay, you just
Mhm.
flip flopped in 15 minutes just because of the performance of two people that are both high level in the world. You can't just discount somebody's talents because of one fight against another very highly skilled opponent. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and a lot of people don't understand like what it takes to step in there. They just sit on the sidelines and want to be you know how it is,
Yeah,
armchair
yeah.
critics. But yeah, those people don't matter. What matters is like you stepping in and performing at your best. What do you feel in this fight? Like what is your, I don't want to say prediction, but how do you want to come back from these two losses?
Showing that I am well rounded. I think everybody talked about it before. In the last fight, it became less in people's mind. I want to show that I have the grappling, I have the stand up, I have the forward pressure. I can also move backwards. I can do whatever I need to do in that fight to win and show that I have that high fight IQ. That's the goal going into this fight, and get another win under my belt, renegotiate my contract, and stick around in the UFC for years to come.
All right, sounds good. A couple more questions outside of the fight I would like to ask you. The first one is about what we just talked about is the fans, right? MMA fans, you've been dealing with them throughout the years, even Invicta, before that probably, now in the UFC on the biggest stage. What do you think MMA fans obsess about too much that fighters really don't care about?
Hmm, that's a hard one. Probably looks during fights. That's a big one you always hear about, is like when we walk out and what we look like, especially the females, right? It's like, yeah, we look completely different when we walk into the cage versus our pretty pictures on Instagram. And it's like, we really don't care. We're not focused on our eyebrows looking just right when we walk into the cage. We're worried about getting a paycheck and entertaining you. Like, it's an entertainment industry from every aspect. And if you want to just follow the female version of us on Instagram, go for it.
Yeah, I think the last thing you're worried about when you're stepping in the cage to fight a person that's trying to take your head off is how you look in there, but it is what it is, right? And PTSD in combat sports, not CTE, but PTSD from like maybe an injury or, like a bad weight cut or maybe even damage taken in a fight. And some people get it from, losing. Have you ever experienced this and overcame it, or have you seen it in fighters around you?
I actually have, not severe. Like, I don't want to compare.
Mhm.
I get kind of upset when people compare PTSD, because I've had a lot of people in the military around me that have had
Yes.
real trauma like that. But as far as mild versions of that, when I had my knee surgery when I was 20 years old, I remember it took me a long time to be comfortable with people kicking my leg. I'd like run away from it, I'd avoid it and end up getting hurt other ways or getting taken down a lot easier because I was just worried about it getting hurt, because I wasn't confident in it yet. And I had to just keep training and let partners like lightly hit it and then get a little harder. And then, now I can't even tell you which knee hurts anymore. It's
Mhm.
fine. And then the same way with my eye surgery back in July of 2020, I did change completely how I sparred and everything after that to this day. Like, I don't like getting hit in the head hard. That's saved for the fights. I get a paycheck to get hit in the head hard, not to go into training. And it is one of those things where I don't know if you would call it PTSD, but it gave me a different perspective to where I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I going into practice and just getting thumped in the head for an hour, 2 hours a day? This is stupid. This isn't helping make me better or stronger. And we changed a lot of the format of what we were doing, and it's helped me. But I can also say I don't like getting punched in the head. I don't know
Mhm.
anybody who does. And if you do, you're crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception about that a lot of the times where fans think like fighters like to get into brawls, and I'm pretty sure some of them do, but afterwards, I'm pretty sure after the adrenaline runs off, they're not like too keen on that anymore,
Yeah, it's more like that's what they're good at, so they say they
Mhm,
like it, or
mhm.
it's one of those things where that is their claim to fame.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, will I take this to get my paycheck? Yes.
Mhm. For sure. And one last thing, crypto, Kevin Lee, he signed with Eagle FC and now he's going to be paid in crypto, his fight purse. What is your take on cryptocurrency, and would you ever consider receiving payment for a fight in crypto?
For sure I would. I actually
Mhm.
just have a new sponsor, Marshall Rogan Inu. People have probably seen it. They're really supporting MMA fighters. They're a new crypto project that I'm now involved in. I've looked into crypto a lot. My husband does it way more than me in terms of like finds out the backstory of everything, sees what's smart and good investments and the timeline of when to sell, when to buy. But we've definitely looked into it, done a lot of research, and I have invested into several kinds of crypto up to this point.
All right, March 12th, UFC Fight Night.
Mm-hmm.
Miranda Maverick is back. Thank you, Miranda, for the time. Good luck on the rest of the camp and the fight.
Appreciate it. 1 week.
Yeah.